Every season of Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Survivor tells a compelling story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to watch episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a hopefully satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end, from the time that they are introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game. We will look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they are a hero or a villain and whether they were a good or bad strategist. And with that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. Now, for reference, we will only be observing what the TV show is showing us and what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned, as the story and characters here have no idea about what happens in those future seasons. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And before we start, I want to thank you all for watching what I make and ultimately supporting what I do with liking, commenting, and sharing. It means a lot. It makes me financially able to make more and more great in-depth content for you all. For only a few bucks a month, you can pick who I make videos about, watch all of this channel's content early, chat with other fans of the show, and even get exclusive videos every month only on Patreon. With that, let's jump into another epic story.
39 days, 18 people, 1 survivor.
Amy Cusack, a 31-year-old coffee barista from Colorado, was a castaway on Survivor's 9th season, Survivor Vanuatu. By the time she finished playing, Survivor had experienced possibly their most cutthroat female player of all time. So, how does she fare in a season divided by sex? Let's find out. Survivor Vanuatu opens up in a very unique way as Jeff tells everyone that they are about to take place in a local ritual and that they need to remember that this is not their homeland and they need to be respectful of what is about to happen.
You're going to take part in a tribal ritual.
It's going to impact each of you differently. At times you may find it beautiful. At times you may be repulsed. You are in a foreign country. Remember that. This is their culture. We are only visitors.
Upon arriving on the beach, the natives immediately separate the men from the women, and the women are pushed aside and told to watch as the men get treated like kings. This is when we hear from Amy for the first time, as she tells us this is strange for her. She isn't used to being treated as anything less than a man.
I was waiting for our turn. I was like, well, okay, well, when do we get kava? But it never came around. I'm not used to being put second behind a man.
After the ceremony, the tribes are sent on their way and the men and women are officially separated. And while there is a lot of drama at the women's camp, Amy mostly stays out of it and lets it play out.
Some of the gals are down there on the beach, basking in the sun, chitty-chatting.
Oh, praise the spirits for the sun.
However, when building the shelter, there happens to be a clear divide between those who are working hard and those who are slacking off. Amy is part of the hard-working group and is not part of the drama whatsoever.
Dude, are they building shelter right now? I don't see them.
At the immunity challenge, the men are unable to get everyone across the balance beam, so the women win.
Yes, sir. Across the finish line, the women win the first challenge. Reward and immunity.
And that is it for the premiere episode. It's a very quiet beginning for our main character, but it helped that there was so much to cover in this episode in terms of events that there wasn't a ton of time for character development. As of now, it seems impossible to tell where the story is going for her, but let's trek on and discover it together. Episode 2 begins and Dolly is not having a great time in Vanuatu. The lack of sleep and food is really getting to her, and Amy hugs her and gives her a shoulder to cry on, really being just an empathetic ear.
It's rough.
The women then win reward, and back at camp, all of a sudden, a chicken comes walking across their camp, and the chase is on. Everyone tries to corner it and catch it, but they also forget that chickens can kind of sort of fly unless their wings are clipped, and this is a wild chicken. They do end up finding the chicken's nest though, where they get some eggs to eat, and Amy likes how the tribe is getting along, and them being all women helps is what she thinks.
The good news about being a tribe of all women is that we care about each other, we want each other to succeed. We haven't had to start voting people off yet, and I think we can win the next challenge.
However, she sees a divide starting to form between the older and younger women, and she gravitates towards the older women, but she still doesn't trust anyone.
I definitely see groups forming. That diversity in age has really separated everybody. This is a game of non-trust. I view the first day coming in, do not trust anyone. Don't trust anybody.
At the immunity challenge, the women lose, and back at camp, Dolly tells Amy the plan to vote out Leanne, showing trust with Amy. However, Amy is a friend of Leanne and doesn't want her to go home. So she tells Eliza and Leanne this plan that Dolly just told them, that Leanne is going first and then Eliza.
We'll vote Leanne off now and we'll save Eliza for later. And I guess it's just how the cookie crumbles.
This shocks Eliza, as she's supposed to be in on the plan to vote out Leanne and is part of the younger women's group. But why would she vote out Leanne if she's just setting herself up to be next to go? So this social maneuver by Amy seemingly flips Eliza.
I don't know whether I should vote for Leanne, stick with my original alliance, or I should vote off the person who makes me really nervous. I trust Dolly the least.
At Tribal Council, the tables are turned as Dolly is voted out 5-4, all due to Eliza flipping from the younger women.
Dolly, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 3 has Amy being completely hidden from us in terms of the story, though to be fair, there is so much happening this episode and Amy isn't part of any of the drama. Both men and women are having to go to Tribal Council, and since John from the men's tribe wins the individual immunity challenge, yes, there was an individual immunity challenge just for the men, he has to go back to the women's camp to talk to them and figure out who to give immunity to amongst them. Eliza tries hard to get it from him, but he decides to take the smart approach and observe someone who's completely safe and just give it to them instead. That person is Amy.
Out of everyone there, she was not getting voted off tonight no matter what.
During Tribal Council, Twyla is going on with her usual trash talk of how the younger women don't do anything and they don't like her and blah 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 blah, and she gets in a fight with Mia. Amy then jumps in and completely kills the fire Twyla has to fight by using her own words against her, and by the end, Twyla is smiling and laughing.
And why would I want to walk up to somebody that rolls their eyes at me all the time and act like they can't stand to be around me? Why would I even want to try?
Twyla, you talk to me in one-word answers.
Have you taken the time to walk in these girls' shoes and realize they're just girls? They like to play on the beach. They like to do girly stuff. So you know what? Will you guys French braid my hair tomorrow? Will one of you girls French, you know?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Mia is then voted out 5-3.
Mia, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 4 kicks off with a reward win for the women as they find themselves getting a bush guide at their camp for 24 hours to teach them about where to find food and how to build a good shelter.
Daw was like just a big breath of fresh air. He really took our focus off each other and focused more on what's going on around us.
By the end of the bush guide's time with them, they all essentially conclude that the guide has just been so awesome, and I agree. He is no nonsense and he clearly knows a lot. Amy says that he has given her more confidence and has really helped strengthen the tribe of women. What we keep being shown about Amy is how she really cares about her tribe and that they really mean a lot to her.
I definitely feel more confident that I could find food by myself, I could cook it by myself, and I think he really boosted team morale that we all have that confidence, and that's huge.
The women win immunity, and this is yet another quiet episode for Amy, and this seems to be the trend so far. But episode 5 begins, and there is a literal earthquake.
Holy! Whoa! Feel that earthquake?
Amy, however, says that she liked that earthquake and it made her do a happy dance.
But look at my hand.
He's rock and roll.
Yeah, they're happy. Woo!
I could do without that.
Then a huge shift occurs in the game.
Drop your butt.
It is time to shake things up. The long story made short is that the women's tribe, Yasser, now has Rory and Bubba on it, whereas the men's tribe, Lepevi, gained Julie and Twyla. Amy is in the majority on Yasser, but right away the tribes have a reward challenge, and Yasser loses due to Amy failing in the clutch.
It's up to Amy. She comes up with a marker, Yasser ties. She doesn't, Lepevi wins. Amy can't do it, we're out of time, Lepevi wins reward!
Back at camp, everyone is getting to know each other, and Lisa wants to show Rory and Bubba how to chop the coconut like the bush guy taught them, and Amy says no. They don't need to learn the women's secrets, which confuses Lisa, and frankly, it confuses us.
You want to show them how to do the coconut? Hey, did y'all see how?
Why? Hello?
Huh? Why? I'm like, why not?
It seems like something that is not very important to teach the men, but Amy clarifies that she doesn't want things like this happening because it builds camaraderie with the men, and she wants them to feel separated from them, so it is easier to vote them out.
What I got irritated with was I saw kind of a little bit of our bond disappear. The girls were so excited to show them everything. We're definitely still 5 women strong.
By the time the immunity challenge happens, Bubba and Rory know that the writing is on the wall and they are going home first. So when they get to the challenge, Bubba tries whispering to Chris to throw the challenge to save the men's advantage, but Chris ignores him and Amy hears all of this.
Chris, think about the merge.
The second that we arrived at our challenge, I see Bubba making signals to Chris.
The Yasser tribe does lose immunity, and back at camp, Amy uses what Bubba did and paints him in a disgusting light that is intended for people to grow negative feelings for him so they don't feel bad for voting him out, which is probably what they were going to do anyways. It is very effective and definitely makes him appear to be a villain to the rest of the tribe.
Was he trying to tell?
Yes, I saw him talking to Chris. Like, I just watched it happen the whole time. It was disgusting.
Bubba then approaches Amy and says, "Hey Amy, if I'm going home, will you at least give me a heads up?" But she acts kind of dumb and kind of mean to him and pretends like she has no idea whether he's going to go or not.
If y'all choose me, will you tell me before we go?
I don't see that whole y'all thing.
I'm not asking you to vote either way. I just would like to know.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
At Tribal, Amy continues to paint Bubba in a bad light by pretending that she thought they were all one happy tribe until Bubba signaled to Chris at the challenge. This is some expert work to paint Bubba as the villain, even though we know she had no plans to bring Bubba or Rory in.
This morning, I thought we were one team. I see Bubba making signals to Chris. And the second I saw that signal, I'm like, we're not a team. This is not a team here. I saw it happen.
However, she then volunteers the information by saying that Rory was going to go until Bubba screwed up, letting Rory know he is on the hot seat, putting him on edge, which is smart for short term until the merge, when it will prove to be bad in the long term.
We had all intentions on winning.
And you weren't going to be the one that we had picked if we did lose to go.
Bubba is then voted out 6-1.
Bubba, tribe has spoken. Time for you to go.
Episode 6 starts and the losing streak continues as Yasser loses reward and Eliza feels terrible since she was a huge part of why they lost. However, Amy, like she did with Dolly before, is there for Eliza and basically an ear to listen and shoulder to cry on.
You can cry. It's okay, because I'm sure there'll be times when I cry.
I am.
You are totally capable. You were so 100% capable of doing the challenge today.
Yasser goes on to extend their losing streak to 4 with the immunity loss, and Rory feels like he is on the hot seat, and for good reason. But not so fast, as Lisa indicates that Amy might be gone soon, so she wants to know where things are, meaning the things that Amy knows about.
I'm gonna go with you. We're gonna go.
I can go really quick. Why? Do we need 3 people to go?
I'd like to go just to see where you're going and what you're doing in case, you know.
Lisa said, she wanted to know where the maniac was just in case I wasn't around. And I just found that quite interesting.
Amy sees this as a massive red flag, as she should, and Lisa tries to deny this. Honestly, I don't know if Lisa's telling the truth, but Amy is using this possible slip up to paint Lisa as the villain that needs to go, and Lisa was never on Amy's side anyways, so this is just deviously smart.
That's pretty funny, Lisa. You want to go with me just in case I'm not here for you to go get it. That's funny.
That's not what I said.
Scout and Amy then get to talking, and Lisa is right there, and Scout says, "Hey, I want to vote Eliza," but Amy openly says she's voting for Lisa, with Lisa right there.
I'm not voting for Eliza. After Lisa's comment, I'd vote for Lisa before I'd vote for Eliza.
She then repeats this to Lisa's face that she trusts Eliza more, who the tribe generally doesn't vibe with, and yeah, she's voting for Lisa. This is a ballsy move that doesn't go over too well with Lisa, as you might have guessed.
I can honestly say right now, I trust Eliza more than I trust Lisa. I'm sorry, but I just do.
I'm not going to kiss Amy's butt to stay in this game.
At Tribal Council, Lisa is voted out though, 4-2.
Lisa, tribe has spoken.
True to my word.
Episode 7 begins and Rory is talking to Amy and Leanne about being part of their alliance going forward. He says Eliza should go next and she just grates on everyone's nerves, but we've already seen how Amy connects with Eliza, so Amy shuts him down in favor of a women's alliance going to the end of the game, which just makes Rory mad.
The biggest thing for all the women was no women's alliance has stayed together through this game ever. Not once ever.
What do you mean, what about the guys back home? What do you mean? Then don't treat me like I'm some sort of lackey.
Amy is playing from a seat of power right now, and she seems to be annoying others with what she is doing. However, the people she is annoying the most are going home, so she seems to be able to stave off any insurrection for now.
I've decided that I will go into self-destruct mode. I'm going to institute a slash, burn, and salt the earth policy. If I get voted off this island, the Yasser tribe will burn.
Yasser finally ends their losing streak and wins a reward which nets them letters from home and coffee. Though her letter we see Amy get, it makes her very emotional, and we find out her little brother died in a car accident when he was super young.
What really got me was my dad said, "Your little buddy is watching you from above." And that's my little brother.
Yasser then goes on to win immunity in large part thanks to Rory, and back at camp Rory says he rocked Amy's world, though she acts like she doesn't really mind. He says she could have had him as a friend, but now she's #1 on his hit list.
She could have had me as a tight friend, and she could have eliminated me and knocked me out the game. Now, she's #1 on my hit list.
Episode 8 begins and Yasser is right back to losing again as they lose the reward challenge. However, it doesn't really matter as not too long after, another big moment of the season takes place.
Uh-oh.
Drop your bucks. You are now one tribe. What's up?
That's right, they're merged, and the women hold a 6-4 lead over the men. At the merged camp, Rory gets to work and tells Sergeant Chad that Amy has to be the first to go. He paints her as the ringleader of the women, and that without her, they all won't stick together. The men do not stand a chance with her around.
The only thing I'm telling you is Amy's got the first one. As soon as we got over there, they were like, Rory, you're going next. Amy told us that. Amy is the top dog over there, and Amy has had me squirming.
Twyla and Julie have the men in their back pocket as the guys think they will be voting with them. They want Amy gone next, but Twyla and Julie say Rory has to go first and then Amy, which is good for one vote, but Amy seems to be on the hot seat with everyone all of a sudden.
Yes, but we want to take Rory out first and then Amy second.
Amy then says that she doesn't really care who goes home next as long as it is a guy, and she's good.
I really wanted to just start voting out the guys one by one and have all women at the end.
Sarge then paints Amy to us as the queen bee. She's in charge of all the women and they are all under her spell, which just goes to show how good she is with the people she is with and how bad she is with the people she is not.
Amy has control of all the women. She gets them in her aura and pulls them in and then tells them what to do.
Amy then says she thinks Twyla and Julie are good and thinks that Twyla will never ever leave the Women's Alliance. That is a lot of confidence in someone she hasn't seen in a while, and evidence has shown so far that out of everyone, Twyla is the most likely to flip.
I don't think that Twyla and Julie ever left the Women's Alliance. I don't see Twyla ever leaving the Women's Alliance.
At Tribal Council, Amy says that she brings a good attitude and that is what has gotten her this far in this game. However, the reaction shots we immediately see from Rory and Chad tell us we aren't meant to agree with this.
A good attitude? A good attitude no matter what? Even when things are getting rough, I usually have a good attitude.
When Rory votes for Amy, he paints Amy as a terrible person, specifically that she is a bad rash that he wants gone.
Your treatment of me over the last 9 days has been horrible. I have little or no respect for you, and I really hope that, like a bad rash, you're finally gone.
Rory is then voted out 6-4.
Rory, the tribe has spoken.
It is episode 9 and the men are blown away that Twyla and Julie stuck with the women. And it's clear now, the men will be pagonged.
So this is men against women. It's the first time I realized that. I've never had anyone waver in my alliance, and tonight was the first time that the alliance wasn't true.
The women are being portrayed as a devious bunch too, and it's definitely due to their actions because after the reward challenge, the women bring back some chicken wings, which they share with the other women while the men are all out at sea.
Oh my God.
I feel like such a bad kid.
I know.
And instead of acting like they came back with no food, they give the men the bones and act like this is what they brought back and no one snitches. It's a very villainous look for all of the ladies.
I was real pleased that they brought back some bones of hot wing. To the Lenta tribe, it was like Christmas.
Thanks for bringing us back, guys.
We will never know if Twyla and Julie were being truthful about voting Amy next after Rory because she wins immunity and secures her safety in the game.
Amy wins immunity. Only one person safe tonight at the vote. That is this woman, Amy.
Not too long afterwards, we hear from her about how winning immunity could raise her threat level, which is a good thought, but a little late at this point to try and lower it, considering the hot seat she is sitting on. Her best bet is to just make others look like bigger targets than herself, which she has been doing so far.
I won the challenge today. I don't know if that was the smartest idea in the world, just because I'm already kind of seen as a stronger woman.
At Tribal, Twyla openly says she feels better with the men than the women, and this should be raising a massive red flag for Amy.
And I think the women know. I felt more at ease over here with the men than I ever did with the women. You know, I'm not gonna lie about that.
However, Sarge is voted out 7-1.
Sarge, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 10 begins and Scout starts devising a plan to get out Eliza and Amy next. And she says that she sees Amy as strong and manipulative and doesn't want to move forward in the game with her anymore.
Take out Amy. We got to get Amy out of there. She's a strong contender and she's manipulative, and it's a whole different game then.
They then have a reward challenge where everyone is split into 2 teams of 4. Amy's team wins and they get to go to a local village where they enjoy the culture, and she thoroughly loves it, but really emphasizes how much she feels touched by the kids.
All the children were gathered around this little tiny fire, and they were teaching the song that they had learned for the Americans. And their smiles touched me in a way I'll never forget.
Upon returning back at camp, Amy is sensing some weird vibes from those who didn't go on the reward, and the biggest of all those red flags is how Julie won't even look her in the face. What we know that she doesn't know is that basically everyone, while she was gone, decided to vote Eliza out, and then Amy.
And vote Liza off. And then from there, we got to get rid of Amy immediately. Yeah. We've got to get Amy out because she's the brains.
Coming back to camp, there was no welcome, just could care less. Whatever, you had a good time, whatever, yada yada, sit down and do your work or whatever you need to do.
Scout says she wants Eliza gone, but Amy wants Chad instead for good reason. Men could go on an immunity run. For Amy to be successful, she needs every man out of this game.
I don't think it's time for Eliza to be voted off yet. I just don't.
However, a flip may not happen as Twyla isn't willing to go with Scout and the 2 guys to make it a 4-4 tie where everyone has to draw rocks.
If she wants to go ahead and vote one of the guys out, she thinks it's stupid to vote for one of the women when you still got 2 guys that could win immunity. And she's right.
At Tribal Council, Twyla says you can't trust anyone, and Amy says, no, that's a load of crap. There's definitely people that Amy can trust in this game. Jeff says, well, we'll see if you're in the final 2 then, Amy. And she comes across as very cocky here.
Like, I definitely know that there are people I can trust, and I know I can be trusted.
And we'll find out if you're sitting in the final 2, whether you're right or whether you're wrong.
Chad is then voted out 6-2, and only 1 man remains in Chris.
Chad, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 11 opens with the family visit, and Amy gets very emotional seeing her girlfriend.
Wow.
Back at camp, it has been leaked that Twyla might have considered flipping to the men, but she says she is true to the women, please don't question her. Amy doesn't really listen or emotionally connect with Twyla, and it comes across like she is bullying her to stay with the women, when actually Amy is just not reading the situation correctly at all.
But you know what? Anytime that any guy comes to me or talks to me, I tell y'all. Anytime that there's anything said, but just listen.
But what? Why
don't you say absolutely not? There's no way in hell. Go run on back to your little buddies and
appease them? Why do you have to
Why do you have to even listen to 2 words?
Twyla then makes a big promise and swears on her son that she is with Amy and Leanne, which she says is a big deal for her, and that is a guarantee.
I give you my word.
And I give you mine. On my son, I swear. And you all know how much I love that boy.
Amy once again assures that no one will be blindsiding her tonight when she wins her 2nd immunity for the season.
And they have it. Amy wins immunity.
Back at camp, she wants Chris to go next, but it seems like Leanne and the other women do not agree and instead decide that the consensus is Eliza. Not the worst case in the world for Amy, as the women do hold a 6-1 advantage over Chris.
I think Chris should go next.
But it's not setting really well for Leanne. So if she decides that it's not right, then I'm going to stick with what she says.
At Tribal Council, Amy is blindsided as her partner in crime, Leanne, goes home in a 4-3 vote that she did not see coming.
Leanne, the tribe has spoken.
All of a sudden, Amy is shook. She has been in control all game, but 3 women just flipped and voted with Chris, and this is not at all good for her. Not at all. Episode 12 grimly starts with Amy picking a fight with Twyla, where she is blown away by the audacity of Twyla swearing on her son, and then at that same tribal council in the same episode, doing the things she just swore not to do. However, this is a terrible social move by Amy to try and work things out with Twyla and potentially make something happen in the future.
I just felt like we was gonna get all screwed over, so I felt like I'd take up for the little guy.
Take up for the little guy. That's cute. Well, you're taking up for your own guy, not for the little guy.
I'm just glad I didn't swear on my little brother or my family, because that would be real. Okay.
Scout calls Amy cocky to her face, and Amy admits to this and says, yeah, I am cocky, but I'm also all these other things. And all those other things she describes as basically a lot of humble bragging, but it comes across as not humble at all.
Amy, you're cocky.
I'm cocky. I'm also one of the most giving, loving, caring people.
She then wins reward along with Eliza and Chris, so this is the perfect opportunity to try and get good with them since they both voted for Leanne at the last tribal. She tries telling Eliza and Chris to break up Scout and Twyla instead of getting rid of her.
But something that I think would be really smart for you guys is to break up Scout and Twyla.
She then walks away. Chris doesn't buy it for a second, and frankly, the move she is suggesting is much worse than just voting her out.
She's so 40. You know, does she think I'm stupid? You know?
Later on, while talking to Eliza in bed privately, Eliza is expressing her honest feelings, and Amy lays on the guilt trip hard.
We should stop talking about it. Because I don't expect any miracle from you. I should just be quiet.
Scout says it is annoying that Amy is lounging around when there is work to be done, and then she says that Amy is a control freak, further painting the picture of why Amy is the ultimate villain, and also showing how Amy probably can't work with her in the future either.
Amy is a control freak. She likes to control her world and everyone in it.
She is the most jealous person I've ever met.
We then hear from Amy that she thinks Scout is jealous because of something. She isn't entirely sure what the something is though. Maybe it's because Amy is physically fit and younger and Scout isn't. If anything, it comes across as Amy is jealous since she has recently lost power in the game.
I think she's irritated with me for some reason, whether it's because she's older and I'm younger and I still have my body and I don't know what it is.
At the immunity challenge, it is do or die. And they're playing a pretty elaborate game of shuffleboard, so really anybody here could win. And the entire game rides on Amy's last shot. And
Amy takes herself out. Chris wins immunity.
at Tribal Council, Amy seems to lack the ability to forgive or have short-term memory, which doesn't work well when you're on the bottom. She basically lambasts Twyla, and when Twyla tries to respond, Amy's face says it all.
And says things to you that I really can't imagine. That person to me is just written out of my life. I don't have any part of that.
May I clear that up, Jeff? Thank you very much.
However, Eliza then makes an impassioned speech about how much she cares for Amy and the bond they have formed in this game.
You're just gonna do great, and you know, she's the big sister I never had, and yeah, I'd miss Amy a lot.
It is all for naught though, as Eliza does vote for Amy, and she is gone in a 4-2 vote.
Amy, Travis spoken.
So let's break this down. How is Amy as a character? She was actually very likable and loyal to those she liked, which in this case were the women. We saw how for 4 episodes she cared about them super deeply, and when the tribe swap happened, she still cared about all of them. On the flip side though, she was cold towards the men when it came to the game, and it fractured any relationships she could have had with them. She was complex due to this, and that's what makes her all the more fascinating as a character, as I cannot think of anyone else from the first 8 seasons of the show that is like her, and that is definitely to her credit. She was always seen as someone the women got along with, and was clearly someone they felt comfortable enough with sharing their feelings and emotions with. However, when she didn't care for someone, It was obvious, and the story definitely honed in on that. Out of 29 character moments shown on the show, 9 were heroic and 20 were villainous, making Amy Cusack a villain character on Survivor Vanuatu. Now, how is Amy as a strategist? Honestly, she reminds me a lot of Boston Rob when it comes to strategy. Build up her alliance, get in that power position, and let no one else in, and put her foot down on the throat of any opposing force. No one can flip, no one can make side alliances, and no one can do anything else, and if they do, they're gone. If you're good with Amy, you're really good, and if you're out, well, you're out. Amy is way more open about her intentions though than Boss Rob ever was, and her strategy would have worked had she been able to balance all of the women and make them feel comfortable enough to not flip with Chris. However, she let the resentment build up in them, and it was ultimately her fault and her downfall. She played a solid game with a massive social hole. Out of 47 strategic moments shown on the show, 26 were smart and 21 were dumb, making Amy Cusack a smart strategist on Survivor Vanuatu. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content you see here, then please consider supporting me and the channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes all of this possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.